Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon. Welcome back to Marotta Media. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you will know what I'm about to say next, but I apologize for my extended absence for the umpteenth time. It's been a busy month. But I do have a lot of videos planned for the next few weeks. Hopefully I'm able to get those out. I really do plan on getting them out, but we'll see. But in today's video, I will be discussing my thoughts on a movie that I really wanted to get out there because I think I have a different perspective than most people, and that movie being Civil War. Civil War is the latest movie from director Alex Garland, whose previous movie was Men from 2022, and I was not really a fan of that movie. I liked how it began, but then it just kept going, and I think that it became so on the nose and very pretentious with what it was trying to say. So as a result of that movie, I had mild expectations going into Civil War because I was worried that this movie would fall into the same category as Men, being pretentious in my opinion. Did it fall into that category? Let's find out. But in Civil War, we follow these four photojournalists on a road trip from New York City to Washington, D.C. in order to interview the president. And they're doing this, obviously, during a modern civil war between these different factions throughout the United States. But as you might expect, this movie has garnered very, very mixed reactions. But I mean, what do you expect? Because it's literally a movie about a civil war, so it only makes sense. But I've seen quite a few people who love this movie walking out of the theater saying that they feel so devastated and broken and that this movie is required viewing, while people on the other side say that they did not think that it was very good and they found it to be hollow with no real message or anything of value to say or add to the conversation. But as I said previously, the people that are praising this movie truly believe that this movie is important and should be required viewing. And to that notion, I ask, why? I truly thought that Civil War was as shallow, hollow, and basic of a commentary on a modern-day Civil War that you can find. I think for a movie to be required viewing, it needs to be a classic or something held in high regard. In this context, if you think this movie needs to be required viewing, then you would think that Civil War has something of value to say, but it does not. Civil War is a movie that offers a glimpse into a divided nation in modern day, but it has nothing of value to add to the topic. All it really has to say is, war is bad and, gee, the US sure is divided right now, huh? This movie has one of the most confused scripts that I can remember of any movie that I've watched recently. Because it never truly knows what it wants to be or what it wants to say, or at least attempt to say. Does it want to detail what a modern civil war would look like? Does it want to be a commentary on modern day American political division? Or is it a movie that is trying to stress the importance of journalism in this world that we currently live in? Because it fails at all of those things. It fails at detailing what a modern civil war would be like because we never get a full understanding of what the war in this movie is about or how it even started. And that honestly doesn't really bother me that we're never explicitly told how this war started because we're living in the divided times that the movie is discussing, especially if you're in the United States. So I think you can draw your own conclusions as to how the war began. But my problem is that it just never details any of it. It just comes off like a bunch of different people fighting. You don't know who they are, you don't know what they're fighting for, you don't know what they believe in, none of that. There's a map that details all of it, but there's all these different factions throughout the country, and the big one being, like, the Western Forces, I think is what they're called. And the Western Forces are made up of California and Texas. And if you're from the US or if you're familiar with US politics, then you will know why California and Texas teaming up is rather strange, but just in case you're not familiar, I will tell you. California is a very democratic state and Texas is a very Republican state, so they are on complete opposite sides of the political spectrum. So the fact that those two states are teaming up to form an alliance in a movie about a modern day civil war seems very far-fetched, and it is because I truly do not believe that would ever happen in reality. But again, this doesn't bother me because this is a work of fiction. I guess in this world, that is a possibility for that to happen. And people have tried to play it off saying that they teamed up because the threat that they face is so severe that they had no choice but to team up. But it is never explicitly stated in the movie why these two very different states decided to team up in the first place. It just kind of leaves it to your imagination. And I'm like, no, in reality, those states would never team up. I want to know why they felt the need to partner. And I guess one reason that they might have partnered is because that it's stated that the president in this movie, played by Nick Offerman, is a raging fascist. It's stated in one scene during the movie that the president has, shut down the FBI and shoots at journalists on sight. But how do you find out all this information? Well, it's basically explicitly said out loud to you by the characters in a mock interview setting. Because remember how I told you these journalists are going from New York to DC to interview the president? There's a scene where two of them are just doing this mock interview, and that's how you find out all of this information. And I don't know, to me this seemed like a very lazy method of conveying this extremely crucial information to the movie. And my last point about Civil War and the point that it's trying to make, or lack thereof, is the importance of journalists. But I think if you want to make a movie showcasing how important you believe journalists are, I think you should make the journalists in your movie a lot more interesting. Because the characters in Civil War are not interesting at all. They're flat, lifeless, boring, shallow, and I did not care about any of them. Because all of these characters, you know little to nothing about them, who they are, their backstories, or how they became journalists in the first place. You're left with nothing. So as a result, you really have no reason to care about any of them, and they are constantly in danger, or the movie constantly tells you that they're in danger. So if they are in danger and they're at risk of losing their lives, then why don't I feel any kind of tension? Why don't I care about any of them? If one of them just dropped dead right now, I wouldn't have batted an eye. Another huge problem that I had with this movie's script is its story structure and just how repetitive it was. Here's basically the entire movie. The gang gets together, they start driving, they hit some kind of dangerous roadblock, they get out of it, they start driving, they hit another dangerous roadblock, they get out of it, they start driving, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. And all of these events lead to a very random and abrupt ending to the film that you could tell was supposed to be the cherry on top, and it was meant to be so powerful and with this final image that's meant to be burned into your memory. But to me, it just came off as funny and completely unrealistic. Without getting into spoilers, there is an aspect of the final act of this movie that is so unbelievably stupid, and I'm like, that would never, ever happen in reality. I know I said that this is a work of fiction earlier, but I feel like there should be some more elements of reality in this movie than not, because it's trying to portray the real world. This movie also contains some of the most jarring and confusing needle drops that I've ever heard in my life. There is literally a scene where people are being executed on screen, and there's like a rap song playing. I'm not 100% sure who it was by because it's been a few weeks since I've seen the movie, but it sounded a lot like a song from A Tribe Called Quest. And it just did not fit the scene at all. And I was sitting there like, am I supposed to be scared by what I'm watching? Because this song is kind of ruining the moment. All that being said, I truly did not hate Civil War. I don't think that this movie is bad. I just think it's horribly mediocre. Because there is a lot about this movie that I truly did think was well done. I think that it was very well shot. I think Alex Garland did a good job directing it. I think the acting by the entire cast is very well done, despite the fact that they were given bullshit to work with. The sound design is also terrific because every time a gun was fired, it sounded so realistic, and I could almost feel myself cringe whenever someone did fire a gun. It also helped that I saw this movie in a Dolby theater, so every time a gun was fired, it would come out from a different speaker every time, and it really added to the realism of it. Even though I said that the ending of this movie had an aspect that was so unrealistic, there were a lot of points in this movie where I said, yes, that is absolutely how someone in reality would handle a situation like that. Again, I won't get into spoilers, even though this movie's been out for a few weeks, but there were several times where characters were trying to, get out of something or get out of danger just by talking, and it kind of has a predictable ending, and I'm like, yeah, if someone tried to talk their way out of a situation like that, then it probably would have ended how it did in the movie. And since this movie is about photojournalists, I really like this idea that Civil War incorporated into these battle scenes where you see these photographers actually taking pictures of the battles they're in the middle of. They're taking these pictures and the action will suddenly stop and you see the pictures that they take, and I'm like, I like that. I think that's a really, really good editing choice. But in the end, I did not really care for this movie. As I said, I don't think it was bad. I think that it was just painfully mid, and I guess I can understand to an extent why people are loving it so much, but to say that this is a movie that should be required viewing by all, I do not believe that for a second. This movie really doesn't add anything new to these conversations on the current American political climate, and that's really disappointing because this movie really insists upon itself. But I will say that I am in the vast minority on this one because most people I've seen seem to be loving this movie, and I'm glad they are. I wish I loved it. I have not seen a lot of people that don't like it. But I just found this movie to be very shallow, basic, and it doesn't have anything really to say about the topic that it's discussing. And overall, I would give Civil War a 5 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Alex Garland's Civil War. If you guys saw this movie, let me know what you thought about it. Did you love it, or did you find it disappointing like I did? If you guys like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my previous reviews, I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.